And a good Wednesday morning to you, Central Georgia. Thanks for tuning in here on 13 WMAZ Plus for another look at your extended forecast. Overall, there isn't really much change with your forecast, but a couple of things that we can talk about. And of course, wanting to keep you updated on our potential tropical system down to the south and the southwest. First things first, let's talk about yesterday. We hit a high temperature of 95 degrees, which marked the third day in a row that we climbed above our average high temperature this time of year of 94 degrees. Our average low, 72 degrees, and we hit 71 yesterday. So 1 under par for the lows and then 1 over par for your afternoon high temperatures. Taking a look at the records, boy, 1967 sure felt good in the mornings. 54 degrees. Wow, that is one of the lowest temperatures I've seen as of recently on the records. And 102 for a high temperature. We were still pretty well shy of that by about 7 degrees. Back in 1932 is when we hit that triple digit mark. Still have yet to hit the triple digits in the year of 2025, believe it or not, but plenty days have felt well over that 100-degree mark. So we will be very thankful that we're not pairing up actual triple-digit temperatures with the humidity, because it would feel well above the triple digits as well, and probably getting into excessive heat warning criteria, which we haven't had to talk about in quite some time. Didn't record any rain yesterday, no surprise there, so we now are hovering about 2 3/4 of an inch above where we should be this time of year. Still a really good cushion. We were upwards to about 5 inches above average on that year departure just over a week ago, maybe about a week and a half ago. So we haven't even seen a decline of to the halfway point virtually to that 2.5 inch mark, even with little to no rainfall at Middle Georgia Regional Airport. Sunrise yesterday, 6:38, and sunset was at 8:43. So we're actually seeing that sunset trend a little bit earlier into the evening hours now. But let's take a look at 2025 rainfall as a whole. We've been showing you the July rainfall graphic, and no need for me to show you that once again because we didn't add any numbers to that total. So far in the month of July, we are hovering nearly 2.5 inches below where we should be at this point in the month. We've actually only recorded 0.2 of an inch of rain at Middle Georgia Regional Airport in the month of July, so a very, very minuscule amount. You see above average still by about 2 3/4 of an inch that I did just talk to you about, and this is as of yesterday, so this will be as of July 15th. If we are to get any rainfall today, then of course we could see maybe this red box get a little bit slimmer, but overall July has been our driest month as it does currently stand of the entire year. January and February got us off to a pretty dry start to 2025. March and April were barely above average, but at least we were trending above average and not below average. And then May and June, oh yes, they were very wet months. Even the month of June hovering nearly 4 inches above what we typically see in that month. So it has provided us with a good cushion to stay above average for the entire year. Your main headlines, sizzling and sticky. Yes, that's what it's going to feel like outside each and every day. We do have a slight rain chance every day in light of this hot and humid atmosphere, but rain chances are not necessarily looking very impressive for your Wednesday and for your Thursday very specifically. But we have even more heat that could be on the way as we head into the weekend and next week. It's just a little bit of a temperature increase, but each degree those temperatures or those dew point temperatures go up, it can enhance the feels like numbers. And we're right on the line of heat advisory criteria with those feels like numbers. So of course, just a little bit of an uptick in the high temperatures could result in a warm up into heat advisory criteria into the weekend and the beginning of next week. Here's a walk around the quad right now. We had lots of clouds present this morning. It was a pretty gloomy atmosphere, not the best image of the sunrise, but cloud cover in the mornings, never a bad thing whatsoever, especially during this time of the year, because it blocks a lot of that sunshine. We're a little bit slower to warm up, and we still see some patchy clouds here and there, mainly Warner Robins here in the bottom right, Georgia National Fairgrounds in the bottom left, and up in the top left of your screen, downtown Macon. And some of these clouds do appear to maybe be even rainmakers, some dark bottoms to them, but not really producing any rain whatsoever this morning. We'll kind of focus on some of the areas that could see a shower on the satellite and radar picture coming up here in just a moment. But downtown Dublin, the farther south that you live this morning, we have seen more breaks in the cloud cover. So there are fewer clouds in the sky in Lawrence County right now. That's going to contribute to a little bit of a faster warm up in those areas. So that's why you are seeing plenty of 82s and 83s down here, the farther south and southeast that you travel. Also, this northeasterly section of central Georgia, they have been hovering to be some of the warmest temperatures so far. Gordon, Milledgeville, Sparta, and Eatonton all at 83 or 84 degrees. Still a little bit cooler farther to the west, Thomaston and Butler hovering in the upper 70s, but everyone else is running 80 plus here as we approach the 11 a.m. hour. Compared to our neighbors, how are we shaping up? Well, it actually does look like a good trail of some yellow color, at least right here. So that's going to indicate your slightly cooler temperatures in West Georgia, maybe in eastern Alabama, all the way down to the Florida Panhandle. But some of those patchy areas of orange are resulting in temperatures that are even warmer than here in central Georgia, down on the Florida Panhandle by Panama City, Jacksonville at 85, 84 in Orlando. And Charleston and New Orleans are taking the cake right now for, actually, no, I correct myself, 88 in Jackson and 88 in Nashville. Those numbers are taking the cake for the warmest temperatures here early this Wednesday morning. But getting a good view of the temperatures on this graphic right here, but not only those temperatures, take a look at this. This is actually pretty cool right here. You can see this circulation right here in the northern Gulf, just south of the Gulf Coast of Alabama and the Florida Panhandle. This counterclockwise rotation. So think about a clock running backwards, that long hand on the clock going from 3 to 2 to 1 to 12. That's where we're seeing the center of low pressure that we are closely monitoring for potential tropical development. But just over to the west, you can see some circulation in the clockwise direction. So that's a really good indication of a high pressure center over in the western Gulf, and then this low pressure center up in the northern Gulf. It's not often that you get those centers of circulation so close by one another, but I do believe the low pressure is going to dominate, and we are going to continue to watch it push that high pressure farther over to the west, inland into areas of South Texas and over into eastern Mexico. Let's talk about your dew point temperatures. Okay, in stark green, not much change in this graphic, and we're not looking at much change in this graphic over the foreseeable future. There are some patchy areas of light green, but they are not widespread by any means. If you get a little bit of relief from the humidity, count it as a win. Any kind of little relief that we get in the summertime months is definitely a welcome sight. So your feels like numbers currently, a couple of areas are stretching into the low and mid 90s. Feels like 93 in Sandersville, 95 in Gordon, which I do believe is the warmest feels like temperature at this hour. Not too far off of it in McRae though, feels like 94 degrees. Everyone else feeling like somewhere in the 80s. A lot closer to the actual values in Thomaston, an area that typically has some slightly drier air and is a little bit slower to warm up. But you take a look over to the east of us, and there's plenty of that dark red color, even some patches of pink as you make your way into South Carolina. Some areas over there in the very southern tip of South Carolina are feeling like the triple digits already, but thankfully we're not seeing that here in central Georgia. Taking a look at your winds and your wind gusts. Right now, an occasional gust up to 14, maybe even 18 miles per hour in areas like Milledgeville and down to Cordele. I was saying it a lot this morning. The farther south and southwest that you live today, you're probably going to have gustier winds than areas farther up to the north, because you will be closer to the center of circulation down in the Gulf, and the wind field does increase the closer you get to that center of circulation. So obviously areas like Hancock County and Putnam County are going to be farther away from that center of circulation. Still going to have wind gusts up to 15 miles per hour possibly throughout today. But the farther south that you are, you could have an occasional gust up to 20 or even 25 miles per hour. So that's mainly going to be out of the southeasterly direction, seeing a little bit of a shift in those winds. They were coming out of the east yesterday, now coming out of the southeast. And by the time we get into this time tomorrow, we'll be talking about a predominantly southerly wind as this low pressure center creeps farther and farther away from us. A little bit breezy today is the main headline. Otherwise, it remains the same forecast that you've seen the last 2 days. Slim rain chances, but whatever does fall in the way of rain will still be in the form of scattered showers, even a couple of storms. Not much confidence in any severe parameters with those storms, but maybe your typical run-of-the-mill summertime thunderstorms. 94 for a high temperature today, so I did mention the last 3 days have been above our average high temperature. Today looks to be more on par with that actual high temperature, and maybe we could get a day that is forecasted below that average high temperature. We'll keep our fingers crossed as we flash up the 7-day here at the end of this. So let's talk about the heat index map. And yes, this graphic has looked like a pleasant surprise so far today. We are very slow to warm up. by the time we get to the noon hour, feels like 93 degrees, which, yes, of course, is still warm, but that's not terrible for the month of July. The past 2 days, we have seen triple-digit values as early as midday here in the Macon area, and it looks like we may only top out in the upper 90s throughout the heat of the day today. I do believe some areas are going to crawl closer to that 100-degree mark, and we have the isolated potential for feels like numbers up to 104 today. But this heat index graphic is basically taking the criteria here in Macon. So this is for Macon specifically, but kind of gives you an idea that the cloud cover is going to lead to a slower warm up and may inhibit our feels like numbers from getting as high as they actually could. So let's take a look at your heat alerts. And once again, we do not find ourselves in a heat advisory. Yesterday, I was telling you to treat it like you are in a heat advisory. And once again, even with the potential for feels like numbers up to 104, which is 1 degree shy of that heat advisory criteria, you still should treat it like there is a heat advisory today, because it's still going to be hot and it's going to be very swampy. You're really going to feel that air weight on your shoulders. But over to the west, they are in plenty of heat advisories in states like Mississippi, Louisiana, up into Arkansas that we saw. Back here at home, not quite as hot as it could be for a possible heat alert. And like I said, if we were to have triple-digit high temperatures like back in 1932 when we set that record, you would start to see some of these darker shades, and that's the color that we do not want to see. An excessive heat warning issued for central Georgia. That would be feels like temperatures getting up to 115 in nature. So yes, that's very, very hot, and that's the kind of weather that you really just don't even want to be outside for almost entirely. So a couple of reminders, as it will still be another hot day, not to take away from the fact that yes, we're not in a heat advisory, but still our actual temperatures are probably going to flirt with that 95-degree mark right here. So a good reminder to take care of your pets as well as yourself. We always tell you to hydrate. We always tell you to take breaks in the shade or in the AC. Make sure you're doing the same for your furry friends. Concrete and asphalt temperatures are not something that you want your pet's paws to be on throughout today. 140 degrees is about roughly the temperature of concrete if your actual temperature is 95 degrees. And 155 degrees is what the asphalt is feeling like. Of course, the asphalt, darker in color, it absorbs more solar radiation as opposed to the lighter color of concrete, which will reflect more back out into the atmosphere. But nonetheless, all those hard surfaces are going to be much hotter than what the actual air temperature is. And a good reminder for yourself, if you start feeling any of these symptoms here, and we'll focus on the left side because heat exhaustion can lead to a heat stroke, which is more of a severe heat illness. But if you start to feel any of these symptoms over here on the left, being faint or dizzy, excessive sweating, cool, pale, and clammy skin, a rapid or weak pulse, and some muscle cramps along with some nausea or feeling like you're going to be sick, that's your sign to go ahead and take it easier if you are outside. Go find some shade to sit under. Go find an air-conditioned building to get in. Make sure you're staying hydrated as well, because you obviously don't want to get dehydrated in this blistering heat once again. And we'll flash it over to your heat stroke symptoms as well. Again, if you combat the symptoms over here on the left, you shouldn't have to worry about any of the heat stroke symptoms, but they're kind of the same. There is a little bit of a difference, but the main thing, a good indication that you are having a heat stroke as opposed to just general heat exhaustion. You won't sweat when you have a heat stroke. You will have excessive sweating under heat exhaustion as opposed to that. So now let's get into your satellite and radar picture. We got a little bit to talk about tropics-wise. Widespread cloud cover this morning, and it is breaking apart farther over to the east. We do see more cloud cover over to the west, and that does make sense because remember I was mentioning West Georgia and eastern Alabama. Those areas have some slightly cooler temperatures, and that's where more of the cloud cover is at this hour. Everyone that has ample sunshine will continue to warm up accordingly, but not going to warm up as fast if you do have some cloud cover blocking that sunshine. Let's take it down to the south and the southwest, down in the Gulf, where it is a very active picture. Good clusters of showers and thunderstorms just to the east of the Mississippi River Delta, over on the boot, the kind of toe of Louisiana right there. This stuff right over here isn't necessarily the exact center of circulation. The exact center of circulation is going to be just south of the Florida Panhandle, kind of right here where you see this gap in all of the rain down to the south of Florida, Alabama, and Mississippi. But not going to get too caught up in that, because the main thing that we have seen over the past day or so, We were talking about the center of circulation being over to the east of Orlando yesterday, and it moved on shore pretty quick. Well, it did fluctuate. It moved up to the north and the northwest just a tad as it crossed over Florida. Probably ran into the section of the Big Bend of Florida, just south of the Big Bend, where there are plenty of warm sea surface temperatures. And it's continuing to really flirt with that coastline just to the north of it. If this low pressure center is to stay over water, it has much better chances of developing into our next named tropical system, which will claim the D letter. That would be Tropical Storm Dexter. But if this is to continue farther to the north, move over areas of land, that's going to lead to more disorganized clusters of convection and circulation with the system, and it's not as likely to form our fourth named storm of the 2025 hurricane season. But if this is to continue a direct westerly path, you can see how the southern portion of Louisiana kind of sticks out into the Gulf, so it would move over some land. It's probably not going to play much of a role, however, now that I actually think about it, because this area is mostly wetlands and it's very swampy in the southern portion of Louisiana where the Mississippi River Delta is. That's kind of where the Mississippi River just really flows out, goes into tributaries, and then it starts to clash with the Gulf water. So of course there's plenty of water that is still standing in those land masses. As of 8 a.m., we'll talk about our latest tropics update very briefly because we haven't seen any changes with this. Still 40% chance of development over the next 48 hours, and then past that 48-hour window, we're looking at a 40% chance of developing. Again, just because it says the next 7 days doesn't mean this time next week something's going to form. It's going to be within the next 3 to maybe even possibly 4 days as this will continue its westerly path. But it does still look like we have really high confidence in this system to move over towards the west, and it's going to move on shore somewhere around Louisiana, could even stretch over into areas of eastern Texas. But I think Louisiana and Mississippi are going to be the two areas where the center of circulation tries to move through, and of course that is going to increase the rain chances in those coastal areas. Back here at home, we're looking at minimal to no impacts from this tropical system. The only impact that is really worth noting was yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Just going to be a tad bit breezy, but still not very, very gusty in the forecast. You can just see the wind arrows coming in from the south and the southeast, but we really go without rain. It looks like most of the rain is to the west and the southwest of us, closer to where this low pressure center is. So we could go the entirety of today really without anything in the way of substantial rain. Future View is still trying to pick up on a couple of scattered showers, maybe a storm. Lingering into the nighttime hours, I'm not putting too much stock into this because take a look at that timestamp, 11 p.m. If this is to move in with maybe some yellow, maybe some orange colors, it's not going to last very long, and Future View does pick up on that. But it's just a little bit late to pick up on that, as we typically see. Normally some of these showers are trying to hang on till the midnight hour, and that definitely doesn't happen in real time on the satellite and radar. Going into Thursday afternoon, once again, a predominantly dry afternoon. Still some gusty winds out of the south, but rain chances are looking slim to none until once again we get into that evening and nighttime frame and still trying to pick up on some showers, maybe even a storm lingering in the area. Now this timestamp is a little bit earlier than the 11 p.m. timestamp, so this will be right after sunset at 9 p.m. Our temperatures will still be a little bit warmer than they would be at 11 p.m. So it may hold together very briefly, but overall, most of you will probably be winding down for the day, be in the safety of your home. Just going to be a little bit loud outside if you catch a thunderstorm. Now let's go into Friday, because this is where we could see a little bit of a pattern change. Lots of moisture over to the west, sprouting widespread scattered showers and thunderstorms, and it does look like a good cluster of some showers and storms do move in to the west here in central Georgia. Our fair share of some gusty winds also. You can see these wind arrows actually popping up a bit yellow in color, which will indicate some gustier winds on this Future View graphic. This is going into Friday evening at 6 p.m. and this rain trying to fizzle out, maybe losing a little bit of its steam. Hopefully we can clear out at least for the nighttime hours on Friday for any afternoon plans that you do have, because I know a lot of you are trying to milk out those last 2 weeks of summer break that you do have before getting into back to school. So of course we'll see how this plays out on Friday, but it does look like a better chance at seeing some rain Friday as opposed to today and tomorrow. So let's talk about the winds. Exactly how gusty can we expect some of these winds to be throughout this afternoon? Maybe an occasional gust up to 15 to 20 miles per hour. Some isolated spots could see a gust up to about 25 miles per hour. once again, that system continues to move over to the west of us, but we could see our fair share of gusty winds, even upwards to 20 miles per hour in some spots throughout Thursday. And mainly the winds right here, this would be kind of more of a sea breeze as opposed to the tropical wind field that we're talking about. You can see them coming off the Atlantic coast right here, maybe ushering into portions of south and southeast central Georgia, but overall still going to be a predominantly windy day. And then Friday actually could be the windiest day, as this kind of wave of showers and thunderstorms does try to push in from the west and the southwest. Some isolated pockets of that red color, which are gustier winds. That's getting up to about 30 miles per hour in nature. But of course, you're not seeing those numbers because they're not going over the specific locations right there. But you did see a flash of maybe a 30 there in Macon as we go into your Friday evening. So you should plan on Friday evening definitely being a bit of a gustier evening. Now let's go into your future view rainfall, and still maybe getting upwards towards an inch here in the Macon area. That would be very beneficial if we could see that. But overall, it just looks like these areas that are hovering along the Gulf Coast are going to see the higher rainfall totals, about 2 inches in Destin, 1.5 inches in Mobile, and just shy of 2 inches over there in New Orleans. They're not really substantial rainfall amounts whatsoever, but it is a lot better than areas farther up and farther inland. Only about a 1/2 inch of rain in Montgomery, 1/2 inch of rain in Albany, and these areas actually right here in the northern peninsula of Florida could see the most rain. It does look like maybe that there is going to be some more moisture kind of inflowing from the Atlantic Ocean over in those areas. So let's talk about the spaghetti plots. Even this time yesterday, we did see some of the spaghetti plots actually having the system take a complete U-turn and going up through central Georgia. We don't see any of those plots making that general direction now. It does look like it's going to continue its almost direct westerly path and maybe not necessarily move on shore into areas of Louisiana. It could move on to shore in Mississippi. That looks like where the line of best fit is right there, that red line. But more of the plots are down to the south of this, so it does look like we'll see some fluctuation with the path of this specific low pressure center over the course of the next day or so. If it dips down into the northern Gulf a little bit more, then that would contribute to more organization with this over that warm water. And then, of course, it may be a named storm, maybe a tropical storm by the time it moves on shore into areas of Louisiana. But it's kind of outliers over here that you can see, maybe over to portions of the Gulf Coast of Texas, but there is not a lot of confidence in that whatsoever. That's maybe 1, 2, or 3 spaghetti plots as opposed to maybe the 40 that I'm showing on here. I'll have to go and actually count how many plots that we do have on that. So for your next 3 days, what should you know here in central Georgia for your forecast? Well, it's virtually going to be the same forecast each and every day. 20% chance of a shower or a storm today and tomorrow. And according to Future View, that's definitely overshooting it, but trying to cover the bases because we know this time of year, Future View has a little bit of trouble picking out the specific location of some showers and storms in the afternoon hours. Of course, we're still hot and we're still humid, so we do have a suitable environment for some slow moving showers and thunderstorms. If you are to get a thunderstorm, we could see them kind of sit over the same area, have that slow motion that can result in ponding of roadways, those low-lying areas that could puddle up very quickly. Not too much of an isolated flash flood risk, but of course, if we are to get a heavy shower that just sits over the same area for maybe an hour or two, then of course it could result in that. You can never throw it out of the cards this time of year, regardless if it were in a risk or not. High of 94 today, back to 95 on Thursday, and 95 once again on Friday. But you do notice that slight uptick in the rain chances. And I may up that to about 40%, just given that we are seeing a little bit more model agreement on some showers and thunderstorms for your Friday afternoon and evening, as opposed to what we see for Wednesday and Thursday. But that's the basis that I'm really sticking with as of right now for the next 3 days. The big thing to know is there is an uptick in the rain chances for Friday as opposed to the next 3 days. As far as those afternoon high temperatures go, we're going to keep our fingers crossed if maybe we could actually go back down below average. It doesn't quite look like that's the case. If anything, we're going to see a little bit of a temperature increase. Upper 90s, maybe hovering right on that line of mid and upper 90s for Saturday and Sunday ahead, which of course 97 and 96 both do fall above average for this time of year. And when you pair that up with the humidity, of course, every degree of increase, whether it's the dew point temperatures or whether it's the actual temperatures, is going to result in warmer feels-like temperatures. So right now we're kind of flirting with the line of heat advisories. If we are to see a little bit of an uptick in the high temperatures by the weekend, then we very well could see our fair share of heat advisories issued. Because the humidity, it's not going to fluctuate really much. You do see it decreasing very steadily over the next couple of days, and by the time we get to Sunday, maybe our lowest humidity or moisture content that we do have. But of course, this kind of has been hovering a little bit below what those actual dew point temperatures are. Each day we get to the actual day of this day right here, which is currently today, Wednesday, we typically see it bump up a little bit into that 70s category, that dark green, very muggy criteria. So I imagine each of the following days are going to do the same because we don't have anything big moving through that would usher in some slightly drier air. Now let's go to your feels like temperatures. Upper 90s today, but still some patchy areas of that pink color. So some isolated areas are going to see the triple digits or even a couple degrees above the 100-degree mark. Thursday afternoon, not quite as bad. Once again, still upper 90s, but plenty of pink that is still in the picture. And you see Augusta feels like 100, Valdosta feels like 100, and some areas of central Georgia are still under the same shade as that number. Let's go all the way to Friday and finally actually popping up a 100-degree mark, but it does look like farther over to the east and up to the northeast, more widespread heat indices that are going to be warmer. So we're definitely not the worst of the bunch in terms of how it feels outside for the next couple of days, but it is still going to be hot, whether you feel like exactly 100 degrees or you get into the mid 100s and maybe even the upper 100s. Yes, of course, it does feel a little bit worse in the upper 100s, but it is still going to be hot here, and that's the main message I want to get through to you. So let's pick it up with the long-range models, see what's in store for our rain chances as we head into the weekend and into the beginning of next week. Not much in the way of rain for Thursday afternoon, but we did just see that on Future View. Let's go into Friday afternoon. Some better rain chances, but those better rain chances are still going to remain to the south and the southwest of us along the Gulf Coast portion of the United States. Let's go into Saturday where this system tries to move onshore. GFS is picking up on a lot of drastic disorganization with this, or maybe even moving up to the north and maybe northeast. That would make sense with the spaghetti plots I just showed you. It was moving onshore more so in the coastal area of Mississippi and then maybe taking a U-turn up into portions of Tennessee. But still not a lot of rain to be found here in central Georgia. By the time we go into Sunday, rain chances are still looking very slim. It's once we get into Monday and Tuesday that rain chances could improve, and mainly because take a look at what's going on off the Atlantic coast. There are some areas of potentially orange and yellow over there that indicate greater organization, heavier rainfall rates. And a lot of those do try to move onshore into portions of northern Florida. Again, this is about a week out ahead of time, so this is far from set in stone. But we may have to look over in the western Atlantic once again as we go into next week for potential tropical development. But right now it's not looking like anything necessarily really organized. It would just maybe increase our rain chances if something were to try to circulate and start to spin and got closer to our neck of the woods. So your 7-day forecast is still a very typical July 7-day forecast. 20 or 30% chance of rain each and every day. Once again, that will come in the form of a scattered shower and a couple of isolated storms. We'll see a little bit of an uptick in those temperatures into Saturday, Sunday, and that will continue into your Monday and Tuesday. But the rain chances on Monday and Tuesday next week and for Friday to end this work week are greater than what we're seeing for the rest of the 7 days. So really compare today and tomorrow what you saw in Future View with Friday. Of course, Friday had more rain chances here in central Georgia. A little bit of a downtick over the weekend, which is not a bad thing whatsoever for outdoor plans. And then another uptick for Monday and Tuesday as we head into next week. But overall, it's still a lot less rain than we have seen very recently. We had widespread thunderstorms a couple of days last week, and for the month of June, it seemed like every day we were seeing about a 40 or a 60% coverage of some showers and storms. So it is kind of a welcome dry stretch. A lot of you can get in those outdoor plans, but the downside of it is those temperatures are going to be warmer and you're not going to get much in the way of relief from the heat. So make sure you're taking care of yourself, taking care of your furry friends, and listening to your body whenever you start to feel maybe any of those symptoms of possible heat exhaustion. That will do it for your extended forecast for today. We'll be back once again at 10:30 for another look at what's ahead for the weekend.